50-degree reality. Sunset beach, shot on an HGT.
Umbrella. She's up. Whole nother level of shit you can't even understand.
What is good, my people? We are live, back again with another episode of The Forecast. Now, for some reason, after all these years and everything we've been through, we are still the fastest ones to put our capes on for everybody but ourselves. Even though historically, everybody else has used that against us. And nobody really understands the irony that they need blackness to define their own superiority, which in itself doesn't make it very superior. But when it comes to non-whites, we allow every single group to join the club, and we're quick to put our capes on and defend them, even though they've always turned around and used us as a way to earn their whiteness. Like with the Irish, they weren't always considered white. That's why they try to use the argument the Irish were oppressed too and the Irish were slaves. But one big way you can tell the difference between us and them, they understand they're Irish. They know where they come from. Most of the time, generally, when you ask one of us, all we can say is a continent because we don't even know what country we come from. And that's the first way you can tell every other group doesn't have the same struggle that we have. But they try to compare what happened to the Irish to us. But what they won't tell you is how the Irish earned their whiteness. They created the whole minstrel blackface shows. They attacked black men, women, and children in countless massacres. All in the name of the dominant society trying to be accepted by them. Until they were finally accepted. And other groups try to use the same blueprint to get their white card. We've seen the Jewish do it. We've seen Arabs. We've seen Spanish or Latino people try to do it, even though they'll never be accepted. And we've also seen the Asian community do it. Now, ever since this corona thing started shutting the world down, Asian people have been crying about racism. And even though generally it's white people being racist, and it was Donald Trump himself that called it the Asian virus, but because they're terrified to say or do anything to white people, now there's this trend of Asian people trying to call out black people for racism. Now, I know they're scared to bring that issue to white people, but they can't bring their BS this way, especially with the racism ingrained in their culture. Of course, they're going to try to fit in with the system of white supremacy because they see themselves as the closest thing to white that is non-white, even though they'll never be accepted by them. But because we won't drop what we're doing and go put our capes on for them, now we hate them and we're the enemy. And we're the ones perpetuating racism. Especially when there's no reason in the world for a black person to cape for an Asian person. Even though the first Asians were black and they hate to admit that, we don't hate them. We have too many issues of our own to be caping for a group that has never taken up for us and have their own racist culture against us. Even though their culture itself is nothing but a watered down, plagiarized version of ancient African culture, even though they, like Europeans, and in my opinion, isn't as solid or strong as ancient black culture. But they'll be mad if you say that. And even though they still imitate our culture to this day, and rap and hip hop is as big in Asian countries as anywhere, they still try to disrespect our culture and use the same talking points that white supremacists use. They have no problem bringing their stores in our community and taking our money, but not hiring any of us. But then to turn around and accuse us of discriminating against them. But when you look at Asian countries, how many black people are in political positions or hold any kind of power? But they talk to us about discrimination. Meanwhile, they can move into Africa, buy up everything, and the people still let them. They haven't learned from the first time they've been colonized by Europeans. And then after they build up their houses, their stores, their restaurants, and get all of the women pregnant, Then they discriminate against the native people who live in the land. But you don't see anybody speaking out about that. You don't see anybody making a video about that. They say, well, it's just business. And you know what? They're right. So now that it's time for us to be just about our business, I don't want to hear anything. But yet and still, even though they're trying to accuse us of the racism instead of the white people that it actually is coming from, so many of our people still want to take up for them and put a cape on for everybody else. I've seen too many people talking about still support Asian businesses because they're going through it. But they won't even support a black-owned business. If you're a black person talking about support Asian businesses and you've never said nothing about black businesses, you've got a problem. Because when have you ever seen an Asian person say support black businesses? If they're selling their store or business, they'll sell it to another Asian person, not to a black person. Even if it's in a black neighborhood. They barely even hire black workers. And for some reason, they can get away with it, even though America's supposed to have discrimination laws. But you know what we do? We still support their businesses. But when we do support them, then look what happens.
Brand new video tonight shows a fight right here inside a local nail salon with an employee taking out a gun during the argument. It happened in East Point. That's where police tell Local 4's Lauren Podell they're still looking for the employee involved.
Cell phone video captures frightening moments inside of Nail Tech Salon on Gratiot and 9 Mile. Look again. East Point police say they got the call around 1 o'clock Saturday afternoon when the employee wearing the light green shirt pulled a gun out of his waistband after getting into an argument with a customer.
And his kids in here.
When Local 4 went to Nail Tech today, the manager's sister knew exactly why we were there.
We called the police.
Okay.
Because the lady here want to fire him.
So what sparked the feud? Police say the customer requested glitter polish. The employee refused, and the argument escalated.
She angry
Why was she angry?
because she keep put a nail polish on and she don't want it. She keep take like a whole time for 2 hours for pedicure.
Employees say this worker was in training, and police don't know if he has the proper licensing for the weapon. But regardless, these regular customers recognized him.
He's a newer employee. Like I said, we've come here many times, and he's one of the newer ones.
Damien and his wife live in Northville, make the drive to East Point to Nail Tech for the good service, and are shocked by the video.
A lot of people carry firearms. But the way that was brandished like that, it's irresponsible.
Now, East Point police did get the side of the story from the woman who was receiving that pedicure, but as for the nail tech, by the time officers responded here to the salon, he had already left the scene.
First moment of my life was being held with my arms pinned down.
Painful flashbacks. Days of demonstrations.
Handcuff them! Handcuff them!
Tonight, calls will grow louder for more arrests after a Brooklyn nail salon fight. State Senator Jesse Hamilton will be front and center at this evening's protest.
We're working with the Nail Salon Association, and we spoke to the women who are protesting to have a meeting, and we're setting up a meeting now to have a resolution, maybe more cultural sensitivity training for salon owners, and to make sure that it doesn't happen again.
It was August 3rd. Christina Thomas and her relatives went to New Apple Red Nail on Nostrand Avenue. Thomas told Pix 11 she was willing to pay for her manicure and her pedicure, but not for the eyebrow wax that she says they messed up. But the owner tells a different story.
She says she don't like eyebrows, so she don't want to pay anything.
Brooms, dustpans, and nail polish remover went flying.
We need an apology from the owner, and there need to be more arrests in this incident.
For now, the nail salon is closed. Angry messages remain out front, including, "You are hereby evicted by the community." Police arrested one of the employees and one of the customers, Christina Thomas. Thomas believes every employee that hit her should also face criminal charges.
Now, we support their businesses, and while we're spending dollars in their establishments, they have no problem putting their hands on us, especially putting their hands on our women. Now, we was just protesting several nail salons about them putting their hands on black women, and I didn't see no Asian people speaking up about it. In fact, the comments that I did see were people saying how the black woman deserved it. But these are the people that expect us to stop protesting them to go put our capes on for them and stand up for them. And the problem is, far too many of us is doing just that. When really, if we can't help ourselves, how can we expect to help anybody else? If you really want to help other people that bad, first you have to get out of the situation that you're in. Not take up for the people that help perpetuate it. Plus, we can't forget about incidents like what happened to the brother Akai Gurley and the response that this unarmed, innocent black man being shot and killed got.
The NYPD officer was in court today to face manslaughter and other charges in the shooting death of an unarmed man in Brooklyn. Akai Gurley was killed in a dark stairwell of a housing complex. CBS 2's Lou Young live in downtown Brooklyn for us with more. Lou?
After surrendering at a Brooklyn precinct, Officer Peter Liang was allowed to present himself at court here in downtown Brooklyn. He pleaded not guilty and left court, released on his own recognizance, much to the dismay of some of the victims' families, friends and family who chanted the whole system is guilty. Guilty or not, the whole system is now in motion. Peter Liang, rookie cop turned defendant, topped the escalator at the Brooklyn courthouse as demonstrators chanted outside.
Black Lives Matter!
The 27-year-old officer has been indicted for manslaughter, assault, reckless endangerment, and official misconduct for the November 20th shooting death of Akai Gurley in an East New York apartment house stairwell, a killing first characterized as an accident, now framed as a multi-count crime.
An innocent man was killed and lost his life. And we had an obligation to do a thorough and fair investigation on behalf of the people of Brooklyn. And that's what we did.
The cop's attorney is livid, calling the grand jury a summary proceeding that doesn't take into account the dangerous nature of police work.
An accident can happen, and what happened in this case, despite the spin anybody wants to put on it, is this was an accident.
The tears of the only civilian witness in this case, though, indicate there might be more. Melissa Butler cried softly at the Lewis Pink houses in East New York, where her friend died. Her lawyer says she feels the pain of what happened here every day.
She has to deal with every day that her friend died or was dying in her arms, that she had to apply CPR to try to keep him alive.
It's the officer's actions after the shooting that leads to one of the official misconduct charges. The DA says Officer Liang waited to call the incident in after firing the weapon down the darkened staircase, telling his partner, "I'm going to get fired." He never tried to help the mortally wounded man. Those actions, perhaps, fuel the strongest emotions.
He took a moment to talk to his partner, decide what to do. They are rookie officers, was less than 2 years on the job. I think that's a situation anybody would get in themselves in. They talk about what to do and how to put it over the radio.
Scott Reinecke represents the dead man's life partner.
These are things that were hard for the family to hear, hard for all of us to hear.
This day, though, Akai Gurley's friends and family say they're more hopeful than they've been in a long time.
This is the first step in justice. Now all we need is a conviction, which I have faith that we will get.
In court, the assistant DA said that Peter Liang's first breach of law, his first serious mistake, was having his gun out and having his finger on the trigger, a violation of NYPD policy that he'd been taught less than a year before. There was no danger there, he said. There was no danger to him or his partner, and as a result, Akai Gurley is dead.
Now, this Asian cop, Peter Liang, and another cop was patrolling in a project building. So this Asian cop said he heard a noise down a dark stairway, and instead of using his flashlight, for some reason he was walking around with his gun in his hand with the finger on the trigger. Now, he said when he heard some noise, he got scared, so he fired his gun. Now, it could have been an elderly woman, it could have been a little kid, it could have been a little baby, but it happened to be this brother Akai Gurley, who was unarmed, minding his own business, just walking down the stairs with his girlfriend. And this Asian cop, Peter Liang, who had so many violations, ended up shooting and killing his brother. Now, this cop, Peter Liang, tried to say the shooting was an accident, but after he shot his brother, he didn't even try to help him. Instead of calling for help and calling in the shooting, he was talking to his partner trying to figure out how to cover it up because he thought he was going to get fired. He already knew he wasn't going to go to jail. He just thought he was going to lose his job. Now, eventually, this Asian cop, Peter Liang, because when it comes down to it, they will never truly be one of them, was indicted and actually convicted of manslaughter and misconduct. Now, even though he was facing 15 years for second-degree manslaughter, somehow he was able to get a judge who sympathized with him and made sure, despite a guilty conviction, that he wouldn't have to spend a day in jail.
Let me say this. As I watched the video of the defendant entering the lobby of the Pink House, I couldn't help but get the impression that he was entering with a serious mind of doing a job of protecting the people of Pink Houses. Shooting that gun and killing somebody was probably the last thing in his mind, and probably never entered his mind at all. This was not an intentional act. This was an act of criminal negligence. And as such, I find that incarceration is not necessary. And also, as far as the recommendation by the district attorney for home confinement of 6 months, I find that instead of sitting at home for 6 months and spending money to ensure that he stays at home, I think it will be much more productive if he spent additional time on community service. Accordingly, I sentenced the defendant as follows. On the count of criminally negligent homicide, sentence of the court is 5 years probation plus 800 hours of community service. This is 500 hours that the DA recommended plus another 300 hours. So this will take close to about 5 months in my calculation.
Tense scene at a New York courthouse when a judge reduced the conviction of the New York City police officer who fired a fatal shot that ricocheted inside a dark stairwell and killed an unarmed black man. Then the judge ruled the officer will serve no jail time. It was a decision that left the officer's supporters relieved, but friends and family of victim Akai Curley in shock. Here's ABC's Lindsay Davis.
If we don't get no an uproar inside and outside this Brooklyn, New York courthouse today after it was determined this former New York City police officer who shot and killed an innocent black man in 2014 wouldn't spend a single day behind bars.
We're going to continue to fight till we get justice.
Peter Liang was grief-stricken and in tears back in February when he was convicted of second-degree manslaughter for the shooting death of Akai Curley, an unarmed man who the police commissioner said just happened to be in a dark stairwell when the rookie officer fired his gun.
I apologize to Ms. Butler and to my Davis family. I wish I could undo what happened.
Today, the judge reduced the conviction from manslaughter to criminally negligent homicide and then sentenced Liang to 5 years probation as recommended by the prosecutor. We demand accountability. While Black Lives Matter protesters felt jail time was warranted, Liang supporters felt he was being prosecuted for the wrongs of other officers who've avoided criminal punishment.
In addition to probation, Liang was also sentenced to 800 hours of community service. And George, he has also forfeited his career as a police officer.
Now, somehow this Asian cop was able to get an Asian judge, which is amazing in itself. But then this judge took it upon himself to go against the jury and go against the DA to reduce his conviction to a lesser charge and then don't give him a single day in jail. All he gets is probation for killing an unarmed, innocent black man. Because somehow when it comes to our lives, it's always an accident. But if I was to accidentally hit somebody in my car, I don't have to be drunk or anything, and I was arrested and convicted of manslaughter, I would be in jail. But this judge took it upon himself against everybody else to reduce his conviction and stay on code with his people after their whole community globally came together to support this cop for killing an innocent, unarmed black man.
The Chinese American community in New York City is donating thousands of dollars to help Peter Liang. He's a former police officer found guilty of second-degree manslaughter in the shooting of an unarmed Brooklyn resident. CCTV's Lee Ling Tan spoke to one organization hoping the money will help appeal his conviction.
The Lin Sing Association is fronted by a small, inconspicuous doorway on Mott Street in New York City's Chinatown. For decades, this has been the go-to place for many Chinese Americans in need of help. But now, cash and check donations have been pouring in support of former New York police officer Peter Liang.
It's already more than 350,000
until today, more than 350,000.
Eddie Chu heads up the organization and says he has just this week personally given the bulk of the donations to Peter Liang for his legal costs.
Around $250,000 is take care of the attorney fee. My issue is that we raise the money for Peter for legal fee.
Ex-police officer Peter Liang was convicted in February over the 2014 shooting death of Akai Gurley, an unarmed resident of this Brooklyn housing project where Liang was patrolling when his gun went off. The conviction outraged Chinese-American communities across the nation, who say Liang is being used as a scapegoat after other police officers, mostly white men, weren't indicted in similar high-profile cases involving the deaths of unarmed black men.
I was here 40 years in Chinatown, and we're doing a lot of big cases here. But this time, I can say all the Chinese, everybody is very angry about this case, very angry. A lot of the senior people, they live in the senior housing, they're getting the government's benefit, low income, and everybody come up here to line up $5, $20, every day, long lines here for donate the money to Peter.
Mr. Chu showed me the donor logs, pages and pages of record keeping, as checks continue to come in by mail from across the nation.
HI, I don't know what is it.
Hawaii.
And also Illinois, CA, California. We got all kind of check from all over the country.
Mr. Chu tells me that with these funds, Liang has a new legal team.
Now, when this Asian cop killed an unarmed, innocent black man, Asians all across the world came together to stand up for their place in white privilege. And they stood together in unity for their right to be able to kill an unarmed black man and get away with it. And they said it was unjust to put Peter Liang in jail because white cops that kill black people don't go to jail. So I guess that means if a black cop was to kill an Asian person, they wouldn't want the black cop to go to jail because white cops don't go to jail. But they'd be the first ones calling for this black cop to be beheaded. But these are the people we're supposed to drop what we're doing and put our capes on for them. When you can't name one time in history where they as a collective or a group put their capes on for us. And me personally, I don't care and I can't really be shamed about it. But we have too many issues in our community we have to fix to be worried about problems in other communities. Especially communities that perpetuate a system designed to destroy us. Because believe me, they have no problem with this system. And at some point, we have to learn from our mistakes. We always cape for every other group, and they take the first opportunity they get to stab us in the back in order to earn what they think is their privilege. At the end of the day, we are all we got. We should know by now that we don't have any friends. And now it's time that we act like it.
This is a very complex case. It does not fit neatly into what people typically see as a black-white model of race relations. I guess you had introduced me earlier as a supporter of Peter Liang. I wouldn't quite characterize it that way. I've never met Peter Liang. I don't know him. But I do agree with many Asian Americans in New York and beyond, and you can see from the tens of thousands of people who actually protested the initial verdict of manslaughter that Peter Liang was being scapegoated, being blamed for all of the criminal justice ills that have gone wrong in this country. And so people in the Asian American community really do sympathize with the family of Akai Gurley, his aunt here. There's nobody who's against Akai and his family. No one's saying that his life was meaningless. In fact, you know, he's a young man who held promise and was trying to do the right thing. But at the same time, you also have a feeling in the Asian American community that that Liang was just, that too much was put on him. That, you know, in the trial, the DA actually talked about how this was not about criminal justice in the rest of the country. It was not about the NYPD. It was just about Liang. And so how can this be about holding the entire system accountable when it seems like it's all just about holding this one officer accountable, NYPD being held harmless, NYCHA, which is the agency that runs the building that allowed there to be complete darkness in the stairwell. They are held harmless. So, you know, at the end of the day, it's about holding police officers accountable. And Asian American leaders in the community at large are not saying that Peter Liang is innocent. He was convicted of official misconduct, which represents or reflects the fact that he just didn't do anything to help Akai Gurley. He may have shot him accidentally. The gun might have discharged because he was startled by a noise in a dark situation, but he should have done more. So people, you know, don't dispute the fact that he was indicted, that he was convicted of official misconduct, and he is now sentenced. Not jail time, but he does have a pretty long sentence. This is far more than we have seen in any other case in recent memory.
Number one, from the time the trial began, you have been in the courtroom with Peter Liang. Number two, if this was your child, your nephew, would you not want justice? Number three, you reference Eric Gardner, Amadou Diallo, Timothy Stansberry. The list is long. Where was the Asian community? Where was the Chinese community? Where were they? On top of that, what happened to Nicholas Haywood Jr., the same exact story, the same exact excuse. When you have a corrupted system with police officers are being protected by the law, the ending results is Akai Gurley. Peter Liang and Sean Landau, that was not the first time they have been doing vertical patrol in the pink houses. That was their daily, nightly post. Number one, they knew the area. Number two, because you're not going to sit here and try to justify why Peter Liang should not be held accountable. First of all, he is part of the system, the entire system. It's a systematic problem. We have told and have said plenty of time, it's all about accountability. So here it is now, my nephew, Akai Gurley, Sylvia Palmer, Akaila Gurley is without a son, a father, a nephew, and a brother. So yes, Peter Liang should be held accountable, because if it was your child, if it was your mother, your father, or any one of your loved ones, you would want justice. You would want, my definition of justice and yours is totally different. On top of that, February 20th, 2016, there was massive rallies nationwide saying injustice and justice. Peter Liang was not a scapegoat. Peter Liang is part of the problem. Every last one of those Asians and Chinese supporters, because you are also part of the problem, you help back and finance. You understand? You guys got together, and here it is. You're saying it's okay. When I walked downtown Brooklyn, February 20th, I was called a nigger. Do you understand? After giving solidarity to the family's there in the flesh, I was disrespected.
And Hortensia, I mean, I understand the emotions that you and your family have gone through, but you have repeatedly called him a murderer.
He is a murderer. If someone lied to you, they're labeled as a liar. If someone steals, they're labeled as a thief. If someone takes an innocent life, if someone kills someone, they're a murderer, a killer, a murderer. Either way you put it, no matter how you want to sugarcoat it, in my reality, in my world that I live in on a daily basis, where I have to make sure that my grandson, my sons, and my daughters, every morning I have to tell them, please check in with me. You understand? My reality is I can get a phone call, Miss Peterson, come to the hospital. Miss Peterson, you have to go to the morgue. This is my reality. What's your reality? What is your reality? Okay? Peter Liang is a murderer, a convicted murderer. Convicted murderer.
We will never know as Asian Americans what it's like to lose a life every 28 hours, like the Black community does in the United States. And what I do want to raise is that when we talk about structural racism, white supremacy, and anti-Blackness, we have to admit that Asian Americans are complicit and complacent to uphold white supremacy.
It's possible that these receptors that we're talking about, we may be white males may actually be more susceptible to this than any other ethnicity or sex. So if the Chinese knew this, they could have done this, leak it out into the population first in China. It would spread around the world. When we start getting sick in the Western world, they would be starting to get better, and it will allow them to institute their 2025 plan, which is to control the first island chains, and thinking that the United States would be sick, they wouldn't be able to fight a Pacific battle.
Black guy.
Stupid black guy. Okay.
Stupid black guy.
Okay.
Stupid black guy. Stupid
Touch me,
black
touch
guy.
me, I
Stupid
fucking dare you.
black guy.
Touch me, I fucking dare you.
Stupid black guy.
Alright, don't worry.
Stupid black guy.
Don't worry, say hello. Say hello.
Stupid black guy. Hello, stupid black guy.
Yo, driver, deal with the girl, yo. Take off the fucking bus, yo.
You are the one who is looking at me. I'm not the one. Stupid black guy.
Airbnb description say?
It says no pets.
Did you read it?
And
If
no party.
your complaint wasn't about the pets.
And no party.
You said, what party is
What
there?
party is here? What's the party?
Look, this is the fucking party.
There's no
We
party.
live. You said we can stay here. That was, our names were submitted. We're staying. Your place
four
sleeps
guests.
5 people. This is not a party. Your place
No,
sleeps 5.
no,
It does
no, it
on
says
your Airbnb
4.
description. It says
It
4
says
and a
4.
couch. So that's 5. You have it on your Airbnb description.
Which monkey is gonna stay on the couch?
Which monkey's gonna stay on the couch? Which monkey is gonna your stay on mom. the couch? Your mom. Your mom's gonna stay on the couch. Wow.
Did she say which monkey is going to stay on the couch?
Told us which monkey is
Wow.
There is outrage tonight over the actions of the owners of a Chinese restaurant that bars admission to non-Chinese clientele from 7 p.m. Kenyans on social media cannot believe that it is possible to face this kind of discrimination in their own country. KTN's Ian Ofula is at this restaurant right now, and we join him live for the Insight. Ian, this story has generated a lot of reactions, especially on social media. What have you picked out from the ground?
Good afternoon, Ben and Linda. Indeed, we are coming to you live from the Chinese restaurant here in Nairobi, where there's a lot of speculation going on, and at this point we cannot confirm everything, but a number of things that I can tell you that I've managed to gather from this particular point is that the owner of this restaurant was today issued with a court order stating that they are operating without a license. And so when we managed to talk to the manager of the restaurant, they said that indeed they do not have a license to operate here, but they are planning to open the restaurant officially on the 1st of April. But then what we were able to also find out is that guests have been coming here to the hotel for, business has been going on as usual. But on confronting the manager, they said that they have been giving free food to their friends, which we found rather not straightforward. Another thing that I can also confirm to you is that the management said that they took over this restaurant from a previous owner, and so that is why they're still trying to get more time to get some of the official documents for them to operate. And then when it comes to the very issue that has raised a lot of concern, that is the admission of Africans or black people to this particular facility. 2 press releases had been released in regards to this by the management. The first one was saying that they reached this decision after there was a robbery last year when unknown gunmen, African men, stormed the hotel and stole around 600,000, and this threatened their business. They also confirmed through their press release that this restaurant only mostly admits these Chinese nationals who come here, and the hotel is able to facilitate their travel across the country and to certain tourism destination areas. And so the clients here are the Chinese. The clients who sleep at this particular facility are only Chinese, and that is why when it gets to around 5 p.m. they do not admit other people.
Well, a little earlier we spoke to our reporter in Beijing, CCTV's Han Peng. He explained to us why many Chinese citizens are insensitive towards racial issues.
Actually, in 2008, a World Public Opinion poll interviewed people from 16 countries about racial discrimination. 90 of the Chinese respondents said racial equality is important, ranking second of all the 16 countries. However, despite the opening up of the Chinese economy and many Chinese cities, especially metropolises like Beijing and Shanghai, becoming more internationalized with professionals and experts from all corners of the world, the vast majority of Chinese cities and vast majority of the Chinese people are not accustomed of interacting with people of other races and have virtually little or no awareness of racism in a global context. And from this latest census, only 600,000 foreigners are living in China, a very small portion of them black. Meanwhile, the white ideal is also a pan-Asian phenomenon, as all kinds of whitening advertisements are part of the beauty scene across Asia.
I'm touching you. Are you don't have? Let them go out. Don't use power for me. Are you crazy? Let them go out. Are you crazy? Don't use power for me. This is against law. Are you crazy?
It's against no law. You're in Ghana. Get out.
Ghana doesn't respect law.
Get out. This is Ghana law. Get the hell out. Get out. Nonsense. This is Ghana law. Get out. Go to your country.
Fuck you both.
Idiots.
Hey, so we were in Walmart and what's this, Wood River? And Wood River, Illinois. This officer right here behind us just followed us in the store. You just video. He said we can't video, but he just told us we're on body cam. He just followed us from outside, told us that we cannot wear masks. There's a presidential order, there's a state order, and he's following us right now to the store. We're being asked to leave for being safe. And this is what we're doing right now. I'm going to upload this as soon as we leave the store. This is the officer following us out of the store for absolutely no reason. If anybody knows, anybody's watching, the coronavirus is real. This guy is following us. There's more people, but he followed us from outside. From outside, he followed us all the way in the freaking store just to follow us out of the store. That's him.
We're wearing masks.
There he is.
We're getting kicked out of Walmart for wearing masks. Are you serious?
Hey, so coronavirus is real. This police officer just put us out for wearing masks and trying to stay safe.
Hell no.
Fucking piece of shit.
Yeah, that's fucked up, right?
That is. That's fucked up.
Oh,
He say it's a city law. We can't
I am
wear
putting this on.
masks
This is going viral right now. I'm going to put this on every social media platform.
Right now, I'm at Hartford Bank. I came to cash my check because I didn't have nowhere else to cash it. I've never been to this bank before, and the lady took my check that works at the bank. I'm being discriminated against because I came to cash a check, and she tells me that she called the owner, and the owner doesn't know me, and he's never heard of me before. Took my check and my ID and said she wasn't giving it back. And I'm right now at Hartford Bank. I came through the drive-thru. I have my kid in the car. I had to call 911, and I'm just standing out here, and I'm being discriminated against. Hello. How you doing? I came to cash my check, and I drove all the way out here. I live in Owings Mills. Okay. I came out here because that's the issuing person that issues the bank, the check. I gave my check to the lady through the drive-thru, and she took my check. She's right here.
I got you. I'll figure out what's going on. Can you get a try ID?
Punch your nigger face if I wanted to.
Do it again. Do it again. Say it again.
Oh, you're just a dumb nigger. Yeah, you are.
Yeah, I am.
Yes, you are.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, post
guess
it.
what?
I don't care.
Guess what? You're going into slavery when pressure turns.
Slavery?
Yeah, you're going into slavery.
Yeah, you're going to still pull the slavery
You're going to
business?
slavery. You're going.
White women make just as bad as fucking niggers like you.
Yeah.
Go the fuck
Get your ass on. Get your ass on like I said. Get your ass on.
With your shiny gold teeth.
Yeah. Yeah.
Get my shit. Get away from my shit, you fucking dumb nigga.
There go the devil coming out of her right there.
Yeah.
There go the devil coming out, y'all.
I'm sick of you.
I already got the tag number.
Fucking town is
I already got the tag number. The devil coming right on out of her. Yeah.
Taking over everywhere.
Yeah. We gonna take over the world. How about that? And get your ass on.
You're worthless. You are worthless in society.
You are too.
Everybody knows.
Yeah, and that's why this kingdom is falling. You ever heard of coronavirus? Yeah.
3 days later.
And I really wanted to apologize and make peace.
And could you say it? I just pressed record. Just say it one more time because it did record all the way.
My name is Laura, and I just wanted to come by and say sorry for my behavior last night. I was dropping off food next door, and I just got angry and was very inappropriate, and I want to apologize for my behavior and saying some words that I know were wrong, and I...
Well, one sure thing we do know from history, the black guy shot the baby. Had it been a white guy, he'd have probably took the baby home and ate him. So it's still not as bad as it could be.
Oh my God. What are you talking about? You sound crazy. You sound absolutely insane. I'm surprised
Hang on, I
that you're
I'm not crazy. Y'all are crazy.
Hang on, what are you